Well, I'm Dave Bowles. I majored in engineering science and mechanics at Virginia Tech, class of 78, 80, and 1990. So bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And that foundation allowed me to be lead NASA Langley Research Center, the nation's oldest aeronautical research lab, and just amazing. So the dream of a lifetime, coolest job on the planet. First of all, just the technology transfer back to help out everyday life here on planet Earth. From advances in computing to new materials and everything in between. I tell you, I give you one recent example from several years ago that happened back at NASA Langley when I was a center director. We had developed some flexible thermal protection system materials for landing on Mars, ultimately. And then got hooked up with the U.S. Forest Service to say, okay, could you use that same very flexible, lightweight thermal protection in the backpacks for the Forest Service when they're out fighting wildfires? Sometimes the wind shifts and they need to put up a little portable shelter. And we found this material actually offered better protection and was actually a little lighter. So just that was pretty cool. And I think, second thing is really, it's all about exploring and understanding the universe and our place in it. You just look at some of the tremendous science advancements, whether it be the Hubble Space Telescope and now hopefully in the not too distant future, the James Webb Space Telescope. I think we're going to find out so much about just our own. We'll find out about the universe, our place in it, the origins of life, all the way back to our own atmosphere here on Earth, and being better stewards of the planet, and just really understanding how we fit into the bigger scheme of things. What excites me is what we'll find next, and I don't know what that might be. But just as I was saying, the tremendous, advancements and understanding we see every day as we push out into space. So I don't know what that next big finding will be, but I'm sure there will be one, and that's just exciting in itself. I want to see a human landing on Mars. I think that's very doable. Considering nothing happens on my end, I think that is very doable in my lifetime. I've spent a lot of my career when I was doing research and then managing and leading the research center about Mars and what it takes to get humans to the surface of Mars. So I'm really excited about that. I wouldn't, might not put it as a pros and cons. I think the commercialization of space is just the natural next extension of various commercial activities here on Earth. Space, especially the data from space, is becoming so open to everyone. You have new launch providers, you have new satellite providers, you have new users of the data from space. That's an exploding area as well. And we've got school kids, literally K through 12, building CubeSats and watching them launch. And so to me, that's just fantastic. I think it's also a natural progression of capabilities. And what I mean by that, I think the government and specifically NASA should do those things where there's not a commercial solution, or more importantly, not a commercial market. I mean, you already have that, or you're seeing that with launches to the International Space Station. We're doing cargo launches now, just buying a service, and soon we'll be doing that with crew launches. Well, we've already done that with crew launches to the International Space Station. We'll have 2 providers very soon. So in having a commercial services approach, as we learn more, like I say, we're doing it with the International Space Station now, as we move on to the moon. To me, it's just that natural progression. It makes a lot of sense, and it frees up NASA to do what's next. To me, that's the appropriate role, especially of a place like NASA. Do those things, like I said, where there's not a commercial market. Don't be competing with the commercial market, but do the tough things that are next. And for me, that's landing on Mars. I don't know from, I've got probably maybe a little unique perspective being with the agency for 39 years. I don't see where there is a lot of controversy. I think it's again, kind of a natural next step on our way to Mars to go back to the moon. There's a lot we haven't learned from the moon. So to me, it's just that the more we learn about living and working in space, whether it be in low Earth orbit, as we've been doing with the International Space Station, then the moon, it's just going to help us continue to move out away from this planet, out into the solar system, and one day outside of the solar system. That I'm not sure I'll be around for that, but that really is exciting. So from a controversy standpoint, they made a recent contract award, I think, for one of the to one company, SpaceX, if I'm not mistaken. And there were some protests on the contracts. I don't want to get into all the ins and outs of contractual matters. I already talked about my view on commercial services, and I think that's the way to go. So I don't know what the exact details of that are. That's I've been gone there for, like I said, almost 2 years. So. It's not just companies. Obviously, in the U.S., you see companies and nations across the planet getting into space. So as we all get up there, we're going to have to develop some framework for international agreements that protect each other's assets and rights. So I don't know exactly what that framework needs to look like. I mean, if I look at an analogy here on Earth, maybe there's something to be learned from the maritime environment. But I think it is going to take something that we need to work on. And so hopefully we'll get that done. It's a critical piece of so many things that our national security depends on, as far as communications, satellites. There's lots of communication satellites in orbit, and we just literally depend on it so much for both our national security and everyday life. And unfortunately, I think it will be the next domain, for lack of a better word, of conflict. To me, it's very similar to what you saw at the beginning of the 20th century, as air became the next domain of conflict, right? Before that, wars were fought on the ground, and then you had the Wright brothers, and then by World War I, you had planes flying in combat. Nobody likes to see that, and it's in some ways depressing to think about. Okay, we're going to take conflicts on Earth and move them out to space. But unfortunately, I think it is going to be that next domain as space opens up, and we just have to be ready. Part of it is just there's a lot of stuff up there, and a lot of small stuff, and it's traveling in micrometeoroid and orbital debris. It's not necessarily malicious intent to interfere with other assets that are operating up there. But that's a challenge. How when things break up or satellites break up, you get a lot of space junk, and how we deal with that. I probably would not be sitting here having this interview if it wasn't for my time at Virginia Tech. And let me explain a little bit why that is. First of all, my undergraduate advisor, and who later became my master's thesis advisor, got me my first working experience at NASA. He had a grant, and when I guess it was between my junior and senior year, he had every summer he'd take some students down to work at NASA Langley in Hampton, Virginia. And I did that one summer, came back, graduated the next year, back in the that would have been late 70s, early 80s. The NASA Virginia Tech Composites program had just started. I was part of that for my master's program, and it was kind of like a graduate co-op program, if you will. So I spent part of my time on my master's degree down there at Virginia Tech, down there at NASA Langley, and it ultimately led to a job offer, and I stayed there 39 years after that. So really, I don't think I'd be sitting here if it wasn't for that. I do have to give a shout out to the person who started that program, Dr. Carl Harakovich. I think he left Virginia Tech and moved to UVA, I think, in the mid to late 80s. But I know he's just wrote a book about the NASA Virginia Tech Composites program. So great guy, and it truly got me my start there. I went back after I'd been working there for about 5 years and got my PhD again back at Virginia Tech. But it all kind of started with that first experience during the summer between my junior and senior year. You know, it's I just love the place. I love the environment there. I actually come from a family of Hokies. I was second generation. Me and my brother both went there. He was there 4 years before I was. My dad and my uncle, my dad's brother, both went there, and then my oldest son and my brother's oldest son both went there. So there was this definite Hokie tradition in the family. For me, it was pretty easy. I went straight through and got my master's degree after I got my BS. And then after I'd been out about 3 or 4 years, I wanted to go back and get my PhD. The area I wanted to work in, again, staying in engineering, science, and mechanics and composite materials, it was just a natural. To students, I would say, take advantage of the experience when you're there. It can truly shape the rest of your life. So don't overlook that and take advantage of it. I got to be part of and then lead the NASA's first center and the oldest aeronautical research lab in the country. It will turn 104 years old this summer. I'm talking about NASA Langley. I've been there 104 years. And I got to work with amazing people and do and see amazing work every day. So just, how cool is that? And without my start, as I said, at Virginia Tech, that wouldn't have happened. And now what I'm doing now, I took that job. I'm now sitting over on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, kind of in the hub of the aerospace industry in the Commonwealth. We've got a launch pad over there at Wallops Island, only one of 4 launch pads in the country right now that can launch to orbit. And again, connect it with education. And again, I don't think any of that would have been possible without that foundation. So students, it can shape your life. And so don't underestimate that and take advantage of the experience.